Welcome everyone to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Lalo Rivera. She's a licensed professional counselor and somatic experiencing practitioner based in San Antonio, Texas, specializing in trauma recovery and mind-body healing approaches with extensive training in somatic body psychotherapy from Naropa University. Lalo helps teens and adults overcome trauma, anxiety, depression, and grief through innovative body-centered expressive therapies. Lalo, thank you so much for being on People Dating. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, it's my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What was that journey like to become a licensed professional counselor? What was that aha moment for you? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah. I guess the aha moment is I always like to do I've always been a fan of deep conversations. I've never liked small talk.
Mhm.
So I guess the last job I had before I went to graduate school, I was working with teen mothers and running support groups for teen moms. And my supervisor at the time didn't like how deep I was going with the clients. And she said I wasn't trained to do that. And she said, "You're not a therapist. You can't do this kind of work." Um, and she just put the idea in my head. And I was like, oh, well, then I guess I'm going to go do that so I can do the kind of work I want to do with people. So,
So you
yeah,
had that in you. It's just now you got the degrees, the backing, and all that. So you had that
right.
in you.
Yeah.
So today's a good topic, right? Friendships and issues. Um, and it's funny, Lalo, because I remember, there's been some friendships I had where I might have been taken advantage of or whatever, and it was easy to cut off. Um, Stayed friendly, but not hang out with that person or cut them off completely and high and by and just wherever they are, I'm on the opposite. But then there's some friendships that I have for 20, 25, 30 years that they might have done something to me and I did want to cut them off, but because of that long lasting relationship we have where it was more positive than negative, I
Hmm.
kind of went back on my terms or my boundaries where, hey, if I perceive it that I got hurt or somebody did something to me, I'm cutting them off. Um, in your practice, the people that you talk to, is that a boundary set that way with your personal space and you don't want no one to cross it, but it depends or it depends who crosses it. Does does
Yeah.
my does my question make sense when it comes to friendships and issues?
I think what I'm hearing in your question is like that it's pretty common when a friend does something to hurt our feelings
Yeah.
or does something that rubs us the wrong way, that most of us don't know what to do about it. Most of us don't know how to fight in friendship or to have healthy conflict or to have any conflict because there's this idea that we're friendships are supposed to be easy and we're supposed to get along and they're supposed to just always be fulfilling and happy. And if there's conflict, we have no tools for how to address conflict in friendship.
That is
Right.
so
And so
true.
then we do the friendship fade out or the friendship cutoff, or we tell ourselves, oh, I just don't have time, when really it's just that we're avoiding addressing a deeper issue, or we're sweeping the issue under the rug and giving ourselves, maybe excuses for why we're not prioritizing that friendship anymore, when the reality is many of us are just kind of afraid to face the fact that, a friend did something that bothered us or upset us, and we don't have the tools or skills to address those kind of conflicts.
Mm. And one of the friendships I had that with this guy, he said something at a wedding, and I laughed it off, but I was really pissed. But you know what? I did talk to him about it, and he apologized and everything.
That's
But some of
great.
the other friendships that I might have known them for less than a year or a couple of years, I
Mhm.
felt they were more acquaintances than friends.
Mm,
Does that matter in this sort of issue where somebody hurt your feelings, someone embarrassed you in front of someone else? Does it matter the length of friendship? Like I said before,
yeah.
does that matter?
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think you're saying something that like when there's longevity, right? There's more of an investment potentially.
Hmm.
I actually just had a friend of mine tell me that she's grappling with trying to decide what to do in this very long-term friendship. I think she's known her 20 years, 30, maybe less, maybe 15 years. And she's just realizing that the friendship isn't fully satisfying. And there's been these ongoing issues, but it's she's hesitant to cut it off because it's been 15 years and it's hard to just to like walk away from that kind of investment and longevity. And you've been through many stages of life together. Um, so you're faced with the option of addressing the issue, right? And the person can either be receptive or not. And if they're not receptive, then you get to decide, oh, do I just kind of maybe relegate them to more of an outer circle situation? Or do I say, you know what, this isn't really, you've heard of the phrase, sometimes you have friends for a season, a
Hmm.
reason, or is it
I
a
think
lifetime?
I think it's a lifetime. Yeah, I think it's yeah,
Yeah,
a reason, a
a
season, or a lifetime.
season.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
So kind of looking at like, is this a friendship for a season? Is that season of our friendship, has it ended? Or, you know, in some friendships, you have in your inner circle, and at some point, maybe they need to be relegated to more of an outer circle friendship, which doesn't mean that you're saying goodbye to it, but you're maybe not giving it the same kind of priority that you would your inner circle friends.
So you determine that by, I guess, the length of friendship or your interaction with this person, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly. Does that matter? The interaction with the person. Does my question make sense?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're looking for in friendship, right? Because you can
Okay.
have like frequent friendship, but are you getting a lot out of it? I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're like, you know what, this is somebody that I um go and do activities with, but we don't have the deepest connection. Maybe this isn't the person I'm going to tell the kind of issues that are weighing heavy on my heart, but there's value in that. A friend that you just go and have fun with. Maybe you see them regularly. And if you're feeling like you're getting something out of that, then I think that's okay. It kind of depends on what your values are
Yeah.
and whether it's fulfilling or not.
I've had friendships that I felt that it was a season where
Yeah.
it felt like more, it was always about them. They'll tell you
Yes.
their plans from A
Right.
to Z and all that. And then I felt there was like, I call it throwaway questions where after 15, 20 minutes of talking about themselves, they'll say, "Oh, how you doing?" And
Mm.
it wasn't a sincere "how you doing." It felt like a throwaway question. How do you
Mm.
navigate friendships like that? And for me, it was easy to let go, but
Yeah.
I felt like my time was being wasted because this person would call me, she would complain about like 800 different things, and 30
Yeah.
minutes of her complaining about something, and I'm like, Jesus,
Right.
this is so one sided.
Right.
Can you bring? I I think you were right. You said it earlier, is to bring it up and to confront it. But for some reason,
Hmm.
I felt that it was going to go in one ear and out the other. That's how I
Yeah.
felt. I could have been wrong,
Right.
but
Yeah.
what do you say to that?
I think it's common. I think we live in a conflict avoidant society when it comes to relationship, not
Yeah,
necessarily. I mean, the world is so conflict ridden now, but when it comes to relationships, so many of us are afraid to confront things and we convince ourselves, oh, I'm not going to do it because if I do it, they're not going to hear me. They're going to make excuses. They're going to get mad. So then we don't do it, right? We just avoid the conflict. We sweep it under the rug and it's like a cancer in the friendship or
right.
the relationship for that matter. But you mentioned something about reciprocity, right? The give and take of friendship.
Yeah,
And I think, especially as therapists, we sit all day and we listen to people. So we certainly want friendships where people are going to want to listen to us. And so
yeah,
I'm very sensitive to people who are just kind of taking and, have the floor for the whole time. And then it's like, oh, thank you. And they're gone, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I think most of us know that, ultimately a one-sided friendship is not that fulfilling. And um, sometimes it's hard to bring that kind of thing up, right? But I hear you're someone who wants that give and take in friendship. And I think most of us do want that. And if we're not getting that, that would be a deal breaker for me,
yeah.
certainly. Because ultimately, what are you getting out of a friendship where you're giving more than you're receiving? And sometimes, there are seasons of a friendship where somebody might need uh, more care, more time. Maybe they're going through a crisis, right? So as long as it's balanced out over the life of the friendship, but if the entire friendship feels like, whenever I'm around them, I'm just drained, meaning that they're like taking, right, from you and not filling your own tank, your friendship tank,
Yeah.
then that's something to consider.
Wow. And that's how I felt talking to this one particular person. Like I felt
Hmm.
drained. And
Hmm.
and I call it more of an acquaintance than friendship because once it ended, part of me was a little disappointed, but then part of me was saying, oh man, I feel relieved now. I don't have to listen to
Yeah,
her complaining about, the guy she's dating or the guy that she wants to date and her business ventures are not working out. It was stuff like that that after a while I'm like, oh, I don't, when I would see the phone ring, I'm like, oh shit. And I had to
right.
be honest, because it wasn't a two-way street. And
Yeah,
I agree with you. I want it to be a two-way street. I don't mind listening. I have no problem listening. But, ask me how I'm doing. That's it. I might say,
absolutely.
great, cool.
Yeah.
What's going on with you? I'm cool with that. But if I feel like it's a throwaway question, then I'm going to have an
Mhm.
issue with that. Um,
Yeah.
so now, do you think that people again because they don't want to confront each other, that they could possibly let someone out of their life that could mean something to them if they know they could mean something? If that means something, if my question makes sense, because of some people don't like confrontation, and so they'll let it slide, or they'll just walk away knowing that they might miss a good friend or something like that. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense? Does that?
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend, I've known her for 20 plus years. For some reason, we got into a no talking thing and I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what's going on? Why aren't we talking? And there wasn't anything that had happened. And then some time passed, a few months, I finally was like, I'm tired of this. Like, what's going on? And so we met up at a coffee shop and I was like, I told her my side and then she told me her side. And one of the things she said is she's like, you didn't even wish me a happy birthday this year. And I said, what are you talking about? I sent you a text. And normally I would have called her, but because things were weird, I just sent her a
Mm,
text. And she pulls out her phone and she says, look, there's no text from you. And then I pulled out my phone and there was a text from me to her. And
wow.
it was, can you imagine if we just not talked and she thought I didn't care about her after 20 plus years, I didn't wish her happy birthday. And there's her phone with no text. There's my phone with a happy birthday text. I mean, it's just a
Yeah.
simple like little slice of how we can have misunderstanding and and if we don't address, right? So she was thinking all those months that I didn't care about her because of, this little thing. So, and I think that happens a lot in friendship, in relationship, where we think somebody said something a particular way, especially these days where people don't want to communicate conflict out loud. They want to do it over text
Text. Yeah.
or email. I have clients who just like will come in and they'll tell me about, oh, we got into it. And I'm like, oh, wow, you had this conversation. You were talking live. Oh, no, we spent hours texting this conflict back and forth. Like, and it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
because people are scared to have the conflict live. So they'll do it on text, or they'll ask ChatGPT these days, what would you say in this scenario? Right. So then you're not actually talking to each other. ChatGPT is talking to ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and it's not an authentic connection because people are afraid to have these live conversations with each other that are stressful or that are hard. I don't know. We have so much avoidance around having real connection, live connection.
Are we blaming social media? I am.
Yeah, I mean,
Because everything is like you said, everything. Imagine having a conversation through text. I don't want to have a conversation. My texting is, hey, I'll meet you in the park, here in New
yeah,
York City Central Park. I'll be there by
right,
3:30, whatever.
right,
Hey, what's up? Just checking in on you.
right,
Can I call you, whatever? But because I'm old school, I grew up without social media. I grew
right.
up with a phone,
Yeah,
and I just think that this generation just relies too much on texting and like you said earlier, email. I just
yeah,
think that, and it's like when we used to play sports. We
huh,
had a conflict with our teammate. We talk it out.
right.
We would have a team meeting and things like that. I just think that social media has ruined so much uh, interpersonal relationship, if that were made sense, because everything
Yeah,
is just text, 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 and you
I
know,
mean, and again,
yeah,
I
God,
mean, chat
I forget
GPT
about
or
that. Yeah,
like
ChatGPT.
that
Yeah,
kind of artificial, like that, what that has done to communication, where people, I've had so many people tell me, even therapists, that they're like, oh, I don't know how to respond to this text from my parents. Let me ask ChatGPT. And I'm like,
oh
oh my
wow,
goodness, like we're losing like our ability to even think in social interaction, even a simple social interaction, right?
yeah.
Let alone conflict. Um, so I just find that concerning.
No, no, I'm with you 100%. Because I remember I was talking to a friend of mine. She's in her mid 20s, and she started talking to this guy. The guy didn't communicate with her for a week. And then after like 4 or 5 days, he sent, because she told me about it. He sent her text, "Hey, hey, what does that mean?" And I told her, I said, "What does that mean? Does that mean
Uh-huh.
hi? I'm checking up on
Yeah,
you after a week." I hate. Uh, I like maybe Facebook and whatever to maybe run into people that I haven't seen in years, and then they reach out. I'm like, "Oh wow, I haven't seen this person in years. Yeah, let me accept the friendship." But when it comes to communication, let's talk on the phone. That's it.
mm,
I don't mind talking for half hour, 45 minutes. I've been on the phone for 3, 4 hours at one time, just having a conversation from A to Z. And I just
yeah,
feel that this generation is losing that. And I try to tell the younger generation that I know, people I work with, people I talk to, get on the phone,
yeah,
talk. Forget about
right,
just texting. Text hi and bye. Hi, I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. All right, I
right,
just got home. That's it.
yeah.
What do you say to that? So in other words, how do we get people talking again?
It's a great question because
I
people,
don't. I don't want me to put you on the spot.
yeah, no, I mean, because people are more and more disconnected in some ways, right? We're creating more and more tools to create more and more disconnection and more like not needing to have live conversations. And you and I are probably of more of a similar generation, so
Mhm.
we're not able to speak to, well, what's the value of I see people having more and more social anxiety, right? There's increased social anxiety because people don't have the practice of interacting with each other live. I have folks who are afraid to go to the grocery store and interact at the grocery store. And so you deliver groceries at home because you can get everything delivered now. You don't have
Yeah,
to
I
go to the
forgot about
grocery
that.
store. You
Yeah,
can get everything door dashed. You can get everything delivered from Amazon, so we've just lost even like just basic interaction, social interaction. We don't go to the post office anymore. We don't go, you know, um, so just losing those skills,
yeah.
right, is making that happen. But what was the question you asked me? Like, how do we get people talking again?
Yeah,
Right.
like
So,
in other words, like give us, if you could, give us like a couple of steps, like how could we, let's say resolve an issue that we might have with each other. Like, can you give us like one or two, 2, 3, 4 steps that, to get the ball rolling, so to speak, and not to
right.
avoid the conflict. And it might not be a bad conflict. It might be a misunderstanding like you and your friend had, but that's
Mhm.
great that you guys at least met up and then you guys talked. I just don't
Yeah,
feel that that's happening now.
right. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think there'd have to be a change in the culture. Like cultural values would have to change towards seeing like how being isolated and disconnected from one another is actually causing us harm and leading to poor mental health or physical health
Mhm.
because people are socially isolated. And then I see folks who've just gotten used to being like isolated and they convince themselves they don't need other people, which I know is not true.
Right.
But people get into ruts about that. But the question is, how do we get out of those ruts? How do we get
Yeah.
people talking again? Um, I don't know if I have the answer to that. I think people need to, I almost sometimes people, I feel like so I recently ran a friendship group for my clients with
Mhm.
women, and so many of them didn't want to do it because they were just like, I don't want to be around people. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to tell people my problems. There's just this sense of like being scared to be exposed. And but then everybody had a great time. But it was like,
Mm.
how do we get people there, right? Like, how do we get people to show up
Yeah.
and do this? Uh, I think I had a relationship with them and I just kind of pushed them in the direction and I got them to go. And uh, but I think it's like tapping into people's longing for authentic connection.
Mhm.
But how do we do that?
Yeah, especially if somebody wants to be isolated.
Yeah.
I've gone, I remember years ago before the pandemic, I remember I would go to social events, whether it was a singles event or a business event, and then you see people definitely talking to each other, but then you see a group of, I shouldn't say group, but a couple of people off to the side and just sitting
Mm,
down looking at their phone. And I'm saying,
right.
so why did you come here for? You know, in my mind, like, what's the point
Yeah.
of you coming here if you're not going to talk to anybody?
Hmm.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I could probably talk to you for another hour. Before I let you go, anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to promote? Any Oprah visits you going to, or TEDx talk that we might look for? Any books you
Uh,
got coming? No, you do have one or two books in you.
yeah, I think everybody has one or two books in them. I mean, if people are interested, if people are in the San Antonio area and looking for body-centered psychotherapy or are interested in joining a friendship group, I have a friendship support group that I offer here in the San Antonio community. And yeah, I would say that's kind of where I'm at here, what I do here in the San Antonio area.
And where could people find you? Like, what's the best way to join that Facebook group or get in contact with you?
Probably through my website. Do you want me to give the website
Yeah, of course,
address?
of course, of course.
Yeah, so the listening body counseling .com is where I'm at.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in the show notes. And before you go, one last word about friendships and how we can still maintain it, and or how can we get that sense of community of friends together. If if
Yeah,
that makes sense at all.
right. I'll just say there's a study I recently heard about that I thought was so cool. It's called the Pittsburgh Cold Study. And basically, they got a group of people together, different people, and they exposed them to the cold virus. And they found that the people who had more social connections uh, didn't catch the cold. And the people who had less social connections, like less than three, they were more likely to get the cold, catch a cold. And if the people who had friends did end up catching the symptoms would go away faster because of the social connection. So this idea that being in like our relationships extend our longevity, they
Mm,
help our mental health, our physical health. And so just really wanting to, because I think we often prioritize romantic relationships as sort of the end all be all,
yeah, yeah.
and friendships are, and that's not always like an option for folks. And so I just want to make a plug for friendships being part of our, uh, and people who have friends tend to have longer health outcomes and mortality rates. So I guess I would say that.
All right, no, sounds good. Well, again, Lalo, thank you so much for being on People on Dating.
You're
I really,
welcome.
really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, too.